Hello, my name is Dr. Kelly Tzumis, and welcome to our course, National Parks Policy and Governance. This is a interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary course with both undergraduate and graduate students. For learning about the national parks, the multidisciplinariness of the backgrounds cross-listed with this course is really a requirement. Now, before we go too much farther, I do want to acknowledge the pandemic that has really impacted how we communicate and interact with one another. And this is not just within the United States, but globally. I know it's been difficult for students of all ages, and particularly college students, because it has really changed the way that we interact and the way that we learn. And this is something that we have really adapted to. It has also created some benefits that I'm going to point out to you. So while we have had to meet each other outside to socially interact, for instance, in restaurants, I've even been in parking lots with takeout food with my friends, it has really changed the dynamics of how we communicate. And this is important to recognize because it impacts how we learn. In this class, we are going to take a look at the concept of the national parks. This is important because this concept was actually given birth here in the United States. So the history is really important, both the legislative and public policy history. We're going to look at the uses of the parks and its resources. And even more interesting, in a very recent and contemporary sense, we're going to look at the expressions of freedom of speech and how the parks have been used for protests and expressions of conflict. Now, the parks come in many different shapes and sizes, and you're going to see that throughout the modules. They can be deserts. They can contain both natural and human-made artifacts that are very important for our country's history. They can be volcanoes. They can also include lakes and different seashores. They can be formed of some of the ancient trees like the sequoias and the redwoods. They also can include canyons and rivers, and so the parks have a great diversity. In this course, I have strived to construct a universal design for learning. Now, most of us don't know what that means, but that is being able to design a course that reaches all types of learners, and this is extremely important for online learning. So it doesn't matter whether you are coming out of high school and coming into DePaul, or if you've been here and you're an upperclassman. You could even be a graduate student, recently graduated from DePaul or elsewhere, a professional coming back, a single parent who is having to juggle both school and work. It does not matter in the universal design because this course strives to meet all of the types of learners. So it doesn't matter what culture or race or gender or level of school that you are at. This course will seek to engage you regardless of your background. And in fact, during the pandemic, we have made this online learning more accessible for students who are perhaps found barriers to the traditional classroom. The learning outcomes for this course are the following. We are going to distinguish among competing definitions of national parks, and we're going to have a variety of lectures about this as well as readings. We're also going to evaluate how these competing definitions get institutionalized in the National Park Service, that is the agency that governs the national parks, and how these competing definitions get transmitted into policy controversies. We're going to analyze the concepts of individual versus collective rights and the common good. And we're going to compare and contrast the different roles, such as rangers and scientists, impacts from World War II and the Great Depression on the development of the parks. And finally, we're going to collaborate with a global partner, and that will help us begin understanding parks as they are conceived both in the U.S. as well as working across different cultures and countries. So this is going to be a very exciting course about our national parks, both through collaboration, case studies, lectures, and research that you will do inside of the different assignments. I think you will find this course something that will be enjoyable, and will reach every one of the students as part of that universal design. Now, a minute, I want to talk about what is global learning. I mentioned that we're going to be working with a global partner. We are going to be working with a partner in Italy. This brings us a little closer together during a time when the virus is separating us. This is part of DePaul's strategic plan. Our goal is to engage students in a global experience inside of the classroom. So, this course is very interactive, and it is an interactive online learning course. It follows the best practices of Quality Matters. Quality Matters is a nonprofit organization that really lays out the fundamentals of high quality online learning. There will be no Zoom lectures here. This is not a remote learning course. Instead, we're going to use a variety of tools for learning, such as green screens, animations like this one, PowerPoint lectures, and quizzes and exams. But in this class, quizzes and exams have unlimited attempts, and this is to enhance learning, not just to assess performance. We're going to use both voice threads and discussion boards so that students can orally present and in written form present their ideas and respond back to their peers through written and oral responses. And in this class, we're going to generally learn through discussion with our GLE partner how open spaces are used in national parks through discussion and in writing with students in the class as well as in Italy. So even though the pandemic has changed the way perhaps the classroom feels, it certainly has given us some benefits to online learning. So welcome to our course. If you need any assistance, please contact me. My contact information can be found inside of D2L. I also want to remind you, we're in a very stressful time, so seek to solve problems during this difficult time with the pandemic. Have patience both with the technology and your peers, and make the most of your time with the GLE students. This is a very unique encounter that you won't have very often in your education and has been planned for you. So things have changed during the pandemic. We're no longer in restaurants and bars and movie theaters and coffee houses. In fact, these places now are empty that were once crowded. And that has to change how we interact with each other. And so learning has also had to change. But in some ways, this is a very large benefit to us. We're learning how to adapt and how to interact with people more globally, not just people that are in front of us inside of a classroom. And so we're reaching out in ways and including students that perhaps had significant barriers to learning in a geospatial classroom. And therefore, we're getting more exposure to different types of people and different types of learners. And that means a great diversity of concepts can be explored in our discussions. And that's exactly what I have planned for in this class. So enjoy this class, and please contact me anytime that you need some assistance.